Good morning. It is Sunday, July 12th, 2020, and I am sitting in my backyard garden in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We are gardening in Zone 5B, and I am taking you along on my gardening journey in several different gardening areas. Some raised beds, some containers, and a new method to me, the Back to Eden method, in my neighbor's backyard. So our last tour was June 23rd, 2020. So that is almost 3 weeks ago, just 2 days shy of that. And I've been on vacation with my family in East Tennessee for the last 2 weeks. We did have our friend Trent stop by and check on the garden for us. I really just asked him to water everything, tie up tomatoes here and there if needed. And he did do a little bit of pest control right there towards the end because we noticed quite a bit of leaf damage from those nasty earwigs and maybe some other leaf-eating pests. So this morning I did come out to the garden, did do a little bit of watering and fertilizing, and had to really try to reel myself in because I wanted to start trimming things up and tying things back, but I wanted to really show you where everything is at before I actually get to doing that. So thanks for joining me. I hope that you enjoy watching and learn something new. Please comment down. Let me know where you're gardening, what methods you're using. If you haven't started gardening, tell me why, and maybe I can find some encouraging words for you to help you get started. Depending on where you are, there is actually still plenty of time to garden, so let's get started. Okay, so here's the garden as it stands today. I did go ahead and plop in some bush lima beans, and they are all starting to come up. You can see quite a bit of that leaf damage here. And our squash are starting to climb. I went ahead and put in a few more beans back there. My asparagus beans really are not growing as fast as I would like them to. Onion tops have all started to totally fall over. Here's our bed where there was a parsley plant here. That's the one we ripped out. I did end up picking up a few more pepper plants from a gal that actually lives here in my neighborhood. And she had started too many plants, needed to get rid of some, so went ahead and put in a few new varieties over there. And as you can see, we're already getting some peppers off of them. These guys are all starting to bounce back from all the pest damage that they had. Lots of little flowers on them. And the shishito peppers are coming along pretty well. Oh, and I just noticed that little pepper there. So they're all doing great. I did not end up getting this guy cut back, and it's already starting to flower. So I'm not really sure what my plan is with that. We'll have to see. Here's our crazy bed of tomatoes. They're all doing pretty good. A little bit of leaf curling going on here. So what I'll do is come in here, trim off these lower branches. I did actually fertilize these guys this morning. And you can actually still see some of the fertilizer on the plants. I haven't finished watering everything in, but they're doing pretty good. You can see there is fruit on all of these. There we go. These are called a San Marzano variety. They're a good sauce making tomato. This here is the Berkeley tie-dye. Starting to get some fruit on it. Did get the peas all taken out. And these two tomatoes are doing really well. I'd say they've probably doubled in size over the 2 weeks that I've been gone. Did not see any fruit on these yet, but they are flowering. So that's good. These guys are struggling a little bit more. These are the speckled Romas. And last year they just did amazing for me. So I'm a little bit sad to see this, but again, we'll go in there, prune them up a bit, get rid of anything that's super damaged. I did fertilize them this morning. So, I mean, they've still got healthy growth. They're still flowering. And over here in our main bed, cucumbers. Really not getting the growth off of them that I had expected in this area, but we'll see how they do. I did end up plugging in a few beet seeds before I left, so you can see those are all starting to come up. Some lettuces, those are doing well. Beans are all starting to put off quite a few flowers. Have not seen any beans on them yet. Got squash here. Looks like still all male flowers on that guy. So this is kind of an interesting thing about, putting the same plant in several places throughout the garden and seeing how differently they do. That tomato, and that tomato over there are all the same variety. Those are bush beefsteaks. This guy is, he's doing all right, a little spindly. This one's doing a little bit better. But look at this one. It's doing great. Lots of flowers. Don't see any fruit just yet. Basil's doing pretty well. Lots of flowers on that squash. However, this is our black zucchini, black beauty zucchini, and you can see there's quite a few little zucchinis growing in there. Marigolds are flowering. This is more of I believe this is the Berkeley tie-dye. Really pretty fruits growing on that one. This is another one so this guy's not doing great. In fact, this is kind of an interesting example of what happens when you have suckers fuse with the main stem. So you can see this kind of brown striping coming up, and that's where that sucker was coming out. So I don't know, might have to ask around in some of my gardening groups and see if anybody thinks this is worth trying to save. It's got a really healthy sucker back here, and one down here. So I may actually end up just cutting off all of this stuff and seeing if it will continue to grow. Okay, so we have a basil plant starting to flower. So as soon as you see that happen, if you want your basil to still taste good and continue to produce, you need to pinch that off. So you can see there's the flower head. And so what I will do is I'll come in here, okay, and I'm just going to pinch that top off. So now these will continue to grow out nice and bushy. These ones I actually didn't plant for the purpose of harvesting the basil themselves. This is a purple basil variety. It does attract pollinators. It's really pretty. It smells good. So I will let that continue to flower. So I want to make note here. This is a ground cherry. This is a ground cherry. And that's a ground cherry. Can't wait for you to see what the ground cherries look like in the front yard. Again, we do have some yellowing on the bottom leaves. We will go ahead and pick those off. In fact, I'll show you here on this one. So this is a sucker. That's a new tomato plant. This is your lateral growth. So you can just come in here. If they're small enough, you should be able to just pinch them if you've got long nails like me and just pull them off. If not, you can also just use a pair of scissors to trim those off. So again, just pinch it. Off. So when you do see leaves like that at the bottom of your tomato plant, it's okay to take them off. You can actually still take those suckers off. I left those because I didn't think that plant was doing very well, and now it's twice the size of all the other ones. So I will still leave those on there, but the bottom leaves are doing less for the plant than the top leaves are. You want to encourage that top growth for it to keep producing, setting new flowers. So if you see that kind of damage on the bottom, I'd say third of the plant, feel free to go in there and prune them off, especially when they're yellow or they're full of holes. They're not doing anything beneficial for the plant at that point. In fact, it's probably sending more energy to try to repair those leaves than anything else. So just get them out of there. It'll also help increase airflow. Tomatoes are victims of blight. Tomatoes can be victims to blight, which actually passes between plants from the leaves. So keeping that good airflow through there and preventing that environment is a good thing. So the rest of the tomatoes are doing their thing. Haven't seen any fruit come along on these guys yet, but as you can see, plenty of flowers. These were the little forgotten pepper plants. They're still super tiny, but I went ahead and put them in to give them a shot. I did put in a few kale seeds over here. Doesn't look like very much germination happened. You can see there's one little baby there. Oh, there's another one right there. Those may not have gotten very much water in the initial germination phase. That's my fault because I don't think I really said all the places that I randomly ran around the yard and stuck in as many seeds as I possibly could before I left on vacation. So that's all right. Those seeds are pretty cheap and I can put more in and we'll let them keep growing. So it's primarily beets in there, a couple of lettuce plants that are going to seed. So I will go ahead and take those out because these are the ones that I'm going to be saving the seed from. As you can see, beautiful flowers on them. When they get to this point where they almost kind of look like a dandelion, what you can do is just come along, pop those out. And inside of that pod behind all of those little flowers, and behind all those little flowers are lettuce seeds. Rest of that lettuce did end up starting to bolt. These guys might still be decent for harvest. This is that black-seeded Simpson. There's our baby butternut squash. This is that watermelon that was almost completely eaten back, but it's trying to grow again. I don't know if it's going to have enough time to put any fruit out, but we're going to try. My daughter loves watermelon, so I want to try to get a few for her. This is another bush beef, and you can see there's one fruit back there. This guy is huge. These are all beans in here. You can see some flowers starting to form, so we should be getting beans pretty soon. This is quite a bit more jungly than I imagined this area would be. If you go back and refer to the last video from just under 3 weeks ago, these guys were probably about this high, and now you can see they're going pretty wild. This guy's got quite a few fruit on it. Looks like a buggy got that one. A few more fruit on that one. I will come out here and kind of prune stuff up. I think we are going to go ahead. So there is a stake behind this tomato plant. That's where its actual stem is, and it's kind of leaning back towards that one. So I think what we're going to do is come out and put stakes on this other side. It's far enough away from the base of the plant, I don't think it'll disturb it too much, and go ahead and tie them back so they're not all leaning that way. This guy seems to be having quite a bit of a struggle. You see all these leaves are really struggling. So again, this one will be one that I probably prune quite a bit. Try to get in there and see what the issue is. I did see a small bug on here this morning that I didn't really recognize, so I need to research it. This guy is starting to set some fruit. One little guy right there. I did plug in some more carrot seeds here before I left. And you can see there's one coming up. Ooh, it's not a good year for carrots for me, but there's actually quite a few over here. Those are all doing great. Al wanted to say good morning to us. There's the forgotten tomatoes. They're doing good. Flower bed is definitely not as lush as it was last year. I didn't get wildflower seeds in as early. Had a lot of production in the beginning of the season, but not many late. So I will come through. This is another thing that, you know, this probably should have been deadheaded before I left on vacation, but now I'm just going to go ahead and let it dry completely. So you see here, the petals were above that. So this is dianthus. So here's your bloomed flower. And then as they dry back, you'll see that. And then those petals fall off. And I'm just going to try to pull one of these off so I can show you. Hard to do that with one hand. So inside of each one of those little flowers are the seeds. So I will go back and save those at the end of this season again. And some more lovely little blooms. More dianthus. So in my last tour, I walked along this side to show you just a little bit of a different view, and I thought I'd come alongside again. Can't wait to go back and refer to that video to see how big these guys were at the time, because I feel again like they've doubled in size. Lots and lots of flowers on the tomatillos. Peppers are a lot bigger. This is where those two struggling pepper plants were. I did end up topping them, and yeah, they didn't make it. That's okay. So I actually am going to go dig up some marigolds from the front beds and plop them in here just for some additional pest control and color on this side of the garden. There's the rest of the pepper plants. This one is starting to set some fruit. My mom was walking out here in the garden with me this morning and said, "What's this?" That's a weed. It's very tall. It's probably about 3 feet. It's above my hip. Okay, so let's go take a look and see what's happening in the container garden in the front yard. Hey, so my mom is actually here. She was on vacation with us, and she has already been out here pulling some weeds this morning. We joke around about how the garden is my therapy, pulling weeds seems to be hers. More flowers again on this eggplant, still no fruit. Blueberry seems to be pushing out quite a bit more. There's our first set of yellow pear tomatoes. So excited to see a couple of fruit on the Brad's Atomic Grape. Even though it is struggling so hard, it's still producing some fruit. No additional fruit showing up on this guy yet. Blueberry bush is pretty much where it was before. Cucumbers have definitely gotten a lot bigger. And here's these. Supposed to be a cherry tomato variety. You can see this nice cluster here, but it's only got a couple of fruit on it. I think we might have had some blossom drop on those, but it's got a lot of flowers. Strawberries are starting to send out some runners, you can see there. So I need a plan for those. I'm thinking that I may actually dig those up at the end of this season and transplant them into one of the areas in the back garden, but I don't know where. So I need your guys' thoughts on that. It's already getting pretty hot here, so I need to get these guys watered. They're looking a little limp. I promise they didn't look like this when I woke up this morning. But I'll water these in really. They've just grown so much. I did actually harvest a few ground cherries this morning from the backyard. These guys are starting to set some fruit. Again, I need to get to watering, but I just wanted to give you guys a little update. Finally have a strawberry worth eating. Yay! All of these guys are climbing really well. You can see they're almost to the top of this little trellis that I set up, so I'll probably need to add another layer up there, which I think is great. That one tomato that I showed you in the last video that I was worried had a fused top on it does not seem to have a fused top anymore, so yay for that. Sorry that I doubted you guys on that, but it does seem to be doing quite a bit better. I threw some seeds into these before I left. There's some radishes. You can see the flea beetles found them quickly. There they are. So I need to do some pest control on those guys already. Some lettuces. There's another batch of carrots. Some chard. This tomato is very happy. And then look at these ground cherries. Isn't that wild? I'm going to cut in a little bit of footage here so you can compare to what it looked like just shy of 3 weeks ago. Okay, and then finally, here's those little containers I sat down and chatted with you guys about before I left about our rogue planting method. The corn is obviously taking off quite a bit. So there's actually way too much corn in here for them to really be productive, so I'll have to come in here and thin them out, which is my least favorite thing to do. But everything else looks to be doing pretty well. It's really funny. It seems like there's a lot of what looks like tomatoes growing in there, and I know I didn't put tomatoes in, but I have been pulling random tomato plants out of a lot of the beds. I think some of the compost that we put in still had some seeds in it, and that's okay. In fact, I'll show you one right now. So these are all the ground cherries. This is not a ground cherry. That's tomato. So these are the marigolds I was mentioning. I'm going to come in here and dig a few of these up because this sweet little lobelia, this is one of my mom's favorite flowers to grow in this container and in the containers on the front porch. But it's being completely smothered by these gorgeous, gorgeous marigolds. And just for size comparison, so this is the popping corn that I got from Great Plains. And then this is the blue glass gem corn. I don't think there's any issue with either one. It's just the difference in the growth of those varieties. It's very consistent height here, very consistent height here, but I thought that was kind of interesting. Also, what appears to be a bunch of squash plants, which I also didn't plant. Well, we'll see. So this tomato plant actually got caught in the storm the night before we left, and the stem was twisted completely back on itself, and it was laying this way. You can see that healing damage right there. So I just twisted it back upright, put a stake in, and gave it some support, and look at that. It's doing pretty well. It's gotten quite a bit taller. Another little tomato there. So I looked at the forecast this morning, and it did say that we were going to have a cloudy day, so I waited a little bit to film, and now it's getting pretty sunny. But we're going to pop over to the Eden beds and see how things are doing over there. Okay, so here's our Eden beds. If you remember in my last update, I had come over, replaced a bunch of plants, added some additional soil, and they all seem to be much, much happier, greening up nicely. Some fruit growing on them, which makes me really happy to see. This squash is doing pretty well. That squash is coming back. These guys are all doing a lot better. And looks like we finally have a couple baby eggplants. And this ground cherry looks to be bouncing back pretty well. Let's take a look. It's really tight on the ground there. Oh. I think that, yep, that is a ground cherry. There. Save that for Crystal so she can try it. It's another tomato that I replaced. Let's check this eggplant. Not anything yet on that one, but lots of flowers. Oh, no. There's an eggplant right there. I can't tell you guys how happy that is making me right now to see just one, but that is more than none. I was just talking with Crystal yesterday about the gardens, and that, you know, she said she kept seeing flowers on those eggplant but wasn't seeing any production. So I think she'll be really happy to see that when she comes out. Wow, so it got really hot really fast there. So I kind of rushed through the Back to Eden garden beds, but I'm going to say, you know, it's 50% better. So that's better than it being terrible. I know Crystal said she went out and did some watering. We did get some really good rains over the last couple of weeks, so I'm sure that helped. I did find 3 eggplant, a ground cherry, a couple of peppers, and lots of tomatoes setting fruit. So that's definitely very encouraging. Still have hope that we're going to get something out of those. But thank you for watching the tour of my garden in Zone 5B, Colorado Springs, Colorado, July 12th, 2020. I hope that you maybe learned something new or were as surprised as me on what things grew a lot and what things didn't. I'll be spending the rest of my day cleaning things up, doing some pruning, tying back, finish fertilizing, all that good stuff, and preparing for the weeks to come. If you did like this video and learned something new, please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks for enjoying the experience of life with me. So thanks for watching the tour of my gardening.